Hi, everybody. Pete from Guerilla Film History Now here. Thanks for listening to this podcast. We really appreciate it. It wouldn't be possible without Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. I can't wait to hear what you have in store for everybody. See you soon.
A $155 million wonderland. As if by magic, 1,216 acres of wasteland have been transformed into the most stupendous exposition the world has ever known.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to witness the most excitingly different new concept in the history of television.
So you see, folks, all of you who are living in the year 2000 are fortunate.
I think it was back in 1944, wasn't it, Mother?
That's the most remarkable thing I've ever seen.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of Guerilla Film History Now. I'm Pete.
And I'm Mark.
And this is a podcast where two film nerds stay up all night to look for UFOs, only to find out it's just all planes.
I'm still skeptical.
So thank you for joining us. If you're wondering, what the hell is this thing? When we say Guerrilla Film History Now, our mission statement is really just about bringing film history to as many people as possible and making it as accessible as possible to people. So just as a little kind of qualifying thing before we get started, Mark and I met at a previous job, and we both have a similar trajectory in our education, whereas we started in film, where I was in more of I wanted to do production. I think you wanted to do more film history, correct?
Yeah. I was actually started school to become a teacher and educator. But yeah, I quickly found myself in English literature track from there.
Yeah, which is exactly what happened to me. And you went to Penn State. I went to Cabrini. And I thought that was really cool because I never really met anybody else that had done that. And we kind of connected because we were able to really analyze movies in a very similar fashion.
And we were the only ones laughing at each other's nerdy film jokes at work. So.
Oh, my God.
It's an instant connection.
I still remember the day I came in after Patton Oswalt accidentally spoiled The Last Jedi. Do you remember that? And I was just like, yeah, and I thought it was maybe it wasn't true, and I didn't know, and you're just like, ha, ha, ha. And I was like, oh, no. Oh, no.
Well, it's all right. We forgive here, too. So.
Yeah, it's okay. That entire trilogy was just a fight between two directors. We've had a discussion about that.
Yeah, and
it's really just a fight between J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson.
We can get to that some other time, but
yeah. That's kind of the stuff that we'll get into.
Yeah, it is in
this show. Yeah, in the future. Yeah. So, but what we want to do is literally start from the very beginning of film history.
Because we kind of want to look at, Guerrilla Film History Now. We want to look at film history in its context of American history, because we're American, but history itself, because as we see it, film and film culture is a mirror to society, and they inform each other constantly. So it's kind of silly to look at one without the other. So we're going to be looking at both sides of it.
Yeah, and that's going to be really cool. And I think we'll see over the course of this show not only how history affects filmmaking, but how filmmaking trends and things within films kind of become part of the social zeitgeist.
Right, and this is exactly the function that literature used to serve as, being everyone would have, in certain circles, read about the same things. And so it's it's a commonality, but film is now that language. And so we're literature guys, and like you said, Pete, we know how to look at everything as a text, and we can dive in analytically, and then pull out. And that's that's the stuff I think about anyway. So might as well get myself on record with it.
Yeah, no, I it's really true. And also, there's a lot of classic films that a lot of people talk about that genuinely were based on books. I mean, look Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
I mean
they're
that has,
still making them, right?
yeah, they're going to be doing that series again. There's, oh my God, we could probably talk about dozens of them. Where it's just they all really started as novels. If you really want, that's an episode we could have. That could be all entirely in of itself. But what are we going to be talking about today?
Today we're going to be going back. I don't want to say to the start of film because that is a very hard point to define. It is, yeah, it's hard to track down. It's like quantum physics. You can see the area, but you're never going to know the exact point. So we're going to be looking at the transition from what I consider the transition from photography to filmmaking, and a guy named Etienne Jules Marie in his Chronophotographic Gun. It was a modified shotgun which he was taking pictures with, and he's a figure that I've never really heard discussed, and when I started reading about it, I was like, this guy, he is the keyhole into all of this, I believe. He falls right in the middle of that transition, so yeah, we'll get into all of that.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait. But first, we have a couple segments. If we're going to be talking about film history now, one of the key tenets of our title is now. So why not just, kind of do the box office stuff and Hollywood headline kind of thing. So we have a couple segments up first, before we get into today's lesson. I guess we can call it a class in session.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
Yeah. But first we have morning coffee box office banter. So number one this weekend was Raya and the Last Dragon with $8.6 million. That's it. That is the top of the box office this week, and that is on an upswing right now.
An upswing. So, what's that film's name?
Raya and the Last Dragon. Yeah, and it is a Disney movie. It's a Disney Pixar vehicle. And what it's about is Kelly Marie Tran. You remember her from The Last Jedi? Speaking of Last Jedi.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so she's the lead in that. She's the voice actress of Raya, and she apparently does a phenomenal job. Of course, from what I've been hearing. And she's an amazing actress. Yeah, and good for her for not being on social media.
Yeah, well, that's a cesspit.
Yeah.
As we add to it right here with
with our own
hot takes.
Yeah. Oh man, this place is hell.
Yeah. Come to our
just jump right into the river Styx and just swim with all the rest of the bodies. But to get back into the box office banter, so Raya and the Last Dragon is about this girl. She has to find the last dragon with a group of her friends to try to save the world because the world's been broken essentially. So it has. Oh, so yeah, it definitely has that kind of.
It's not a fantasy. It sounds like.
Oh yeah, no, it's totally a D&D quest, and the dragon talks and everything, and it sounds like a DM doing a character. It's fantastic. I think
that sounds really.
But I mean, $8.6 million. I mean, it was only a couple years ago that we were having totals in the 250 range.
It's crazy. From a Pixar film, yeah. I mean,
from Marvel, but anything. A soft opening was like, oh god, that movie only made like $30 million this weekend. Oh my god. Now it's like, oh thank God, we finally got up to 8.6 again. That's how damaged the theaters are right now.
Yeah, and I guess when we look back on this whole era will have asterisks next to these. You can't like the box office. The box office game's kind of over.
And this also doesn't factor in all the streaming numbers because they also have a situation where they were. It's one of those with premium access Disney things where you have to spend $30 to watch it.
Well, it's about eyeballs now, not the because you're not making money if people if everything's dropping just to Netflix. You're not. The number doesn't mean anything. 8.6. That's already kind of a faulty number. Yeah, and then you add the pandemic.
But it is good to see them in an upswing, and hopefully, as the vaccine rolls out and it's actually like safe to go outside. Unlike some places that just say it is. Right. I'm not going to start that conversation, but just like, oh yeah, no, everything's fine. Go see your grandparents, and give them a hug.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't cover your mouth.
No, start doing the European kisses on the cheek. Oh, jeez.
But yeah, so up next, Tom and Jerry, the pseudo live action like that, Who Framed Roger Rabbit style, live action style thing.
Love Roger Rabbit.
6.6 million.
And this is with Chloe Moretz Grace.
Yeah, and Colin Jost.
Colin Jost, the guy.
One half of the duo for Weekend Update with him and Michael Che.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I do. I like Michael Che a lot.
Oh yeah, no, I like them both a lot too. I think that they have a great dynamic. They have this wonderful couple dynamic on that. That's my favorite segment of the show for years. So it's really cool to see.
Oh yeah, even back to Tina Fey. I
love their Christmas stuff.
One of the strong points.
You ever see the thing where they trade jokes for Christmas? It's like a gift that they
give
to
each
other, and they're essentially roasting themselves. It's fantastic.
Okay,
I'll have to send it to you after we're done. You'll love it.
Yeah, definitely check that out.
And then number 3, Chaos Walking with 3.825.
Oof, Chaos Stumbling sounds like.
oh man, and I'm the one with kids. You doing the dad jokes.
Shit, yeah, okay. I'll have to adopt one.
Yeah.
Just so I have someone to laugh at my humor.
Dude, there's no guarantee that they'll like you.
Yeah, I guess you're just maybe inviting an extra.
Yeah, just watch TV. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
I gotta go to the store for whatever. I'll be back in an hour.
The store for whatever. Yeah, pack of smokes.
Do you want some?
See you when you're
Do you
18.
want a pack?
It's a Bruce Springsteen song.
Oh, it's definitely a Bruce Springsteen song. That's for sure.
Hungry Heart, yeah.
And then just to round out the top 10 here, we got Boogie at number 4 with 1.2. And then after this, everything is sub 1 million. Number 5, The Croods, New Age. Number 6, The Little Things. Number 7, Wonder Woman 1984. Number 8, The Marksman. Number 9, Judas and the Black Messiah, which just won a Golden Globe. I think it won a couple Golden Globes. I actually didn't.
No.
I know, we're doing a movie podcast and I didn't watch it. It's terrible, isn't it?
That movie's fantastic, but that's a shame, no discernible bump. But
it only made $282,000.
Yeah, I watched it on what is Netflix or HBO, I guess it's on. Yeah, so that's how I watched it. And again, I don't know how that stuff gets factored in. That obviously doesn't go to some gross box office number, but it's really about eyes on the screen, not the number anymore. So they're gonna have to recalibrate how
they do all this because
that
it's
information.
completely different. And then number 10,
and Netflix hides all that stuff anyways, don't they? They're real tricky with their.
Netflix has never released any numbers, so nobody believes anything.
Right. So the real box office idea is really just buried in some.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, all they have to do is point to Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and just go, "Oh, wait a second, look at how many people are talking about it. Look how many tweets have been in the last hour."
Like trending.
Of course, people are watching.
Trending might be more valuable than a 30 mil open weekend.
Yeah, but I mean, there's actually no guarantee that any of those people are watching it. They could just be just bots trending, like just putting that name out because it's trending with a GIF, and then that makes it trend more. You know, I mean that's literally how a lot of these algorithms. They're just like, oh, that's what people are talking about. You
and
can fool them
think
very
about
easily.
In conversation when you talk about a movie, and you know the other person hasn't seen it, but they claim they've seen it, and then you try talking about it, and their eyes glaze over because they haven't seen it. You can tell that online too. Some people are just talking about a film because it's what's being
but I've done
about.
that dozens of times.
Oh my god, yeah,
I've done that dozens of times because it's like I have no excuse.
It's the trading currency, absolutely.
It's definitely my fault I didn't see it, but I'm not going to let them know I didn't see all of the usual suspects.
Yeah.
I don't need to.
Not anymore.
I don't need to. Ooh, Kobayashi. Like whatever. It's spacey.
Yeah.
Great. It's another one I can put in a trash bag.
But yeah, this might be an evolving segment in that box office numbers don't mean shit anymore. But
I think it'll be cool. Yeah.
They're,
to finish out the top 10 though, before I forget, Monster Hunter. with 260,000.
Monster. Who's the monster and who hunts it?
It's a video game adaptation. It's a series of video games. Monster Hunter, and I've actually reviewed a couple of them over on the website I work on.
Oh, you're going to see that film then?
No,
okay.
Probably not.
It didn't sound like too many.
I mean, it's one of those. Well, it's from the same people that did the Resident Evil films, and I've seen a few of them because they're
event films.
A plethora
I've seen
of
those
them,
with
but
friends,
I wasn't a big fan. I actually really like Mila Jovovich though. She's a great action star.
Awesome.
She's a fantastic action
She's found
star,
her lane.
and she kicks ass.
In 20 years, she just
oh my god,
she
lane. Absolutely kicks so much ass. And everything she does ever since The Fifth Element, and I've been a fan.
Hell yeah.
So I always give those films a chance just to like at least see clips, but for the most part, I don't typically like see them in theater. Because I'm not like really that kind of person. Like if it's a situation where I think it's going to be like award season and it's going to be a really good award season, I'll go to the movie theater.
Yeah.
If it's the summer, I love going to the movies in the summer.
Lazy afternoon.
Like summer blockbusters were always like really big for me as a kid.
Absolutely.
Like the whole, like we've talked about this, the whole like summer of '92, like shaped everything.
I mean, that's you're 4 and your senses are working. You can talk a little bit, and these. I remember seeing Lion
films
King.
I had no business seeing.
Right.
I had zero business seeing. My parents had I was playing Doom at like 6 years old on a PC. Like they had no foresight,
right?
In terms of like what they were doing. But I mean, I think I turned out okay. I guess.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. My dad showed us the Leprechaun at a young age.
Oh, yeah.
The same thing, and it like my brother had nightmares for like probably still over that. Like those are very. Fragile years in movies. I don't know. It's funny. You can definitely tell someone if they got into horror movies earlier than someone else. It'll show.
Oh and then for Hollywood headlines, real quick thing on that. The big major thing has really been a lot of news out of the DC cinematic universe.
It's Snyder Cut.
Because a lot of the Marvel stuff right now is TV stuff. So I'm not gonna like touch on it too much unless it's like there's literally no movie news. Then I'll talk about or it's like a major like TV movie tie-in. I might talk about it. But with the DCEU, it's Black Superman. Is everybody's talking about? Oh, because Ta-Nehisi Coates is writing a Superman script, and I want to talk about it because I feel like that's really the wrong conversation to be having because there is no indication that they're doing a Black Superman at all. It's just all they said was Ta-Nehisi Coates is writing, J.J. Abrams is, I believe, producing and maybe directing, and he might step back from that directorial role and just stick into producing. He's done that several times.
Yeah,
so when they say he's producing and directing, I always go like, he's probably just producing until it's like it's set in stone. They started production. And
will a filmmaker wait to make that call until they see what the reaction is when like?
I mean, like, if he sees the script and, like, because JJ will look at a script and be like, that's not something I can actually direct. Or it's like, no, you don't understand. Like, that's not what I want. And, like, if people really put their foot down, he is the type of guy to go, you know what? I'll step back. And let's have someone else's vision come in and do something.
Yeah, that's
he's done that historically with major franchises. So I mean, I don't see that not happening with Superman. I mean, if that was what was best for the project, I think that's what he would do, honestly. But I also don't think he would walk away from the opportunity of directing a Superman film. That's kind of a rare opportunity. But I don't think people should be going, oh wow, Michael B. Jordan's going to be Superman because Ta-Nehisi Coates is writing it. I think that's absolute. There's no reason why Ta-Nehisi Coates has to write a Black Superman film. That's an inherently racist conversation to be had.
But like, wouldn't he want to write one? If you're a guy who gets to take a crack at a Superman film and you're a black man, make him black.
No, I don't think that at all. No, I don't think that at all. Because like I'm telling you, I'm at least 8 out of the best 10, like top 10, like Christmas songs you've ever heard were written by Jewish men.
Okay.
So, you know what
sure.
I mean? Like, so like it's not like we can just be like, oh, it's not like they just wrote like Mensch on the Bench and called it a day. You know, like that's not what happened.
I just think,
or they didn't write like these holy songs and call it a day and just move on. Like they wrote a bunch of show tunes and moved on. Like they wrote like holiday things for a religion that for the most part tends to like comment and sometimes persecute them to the point of death. So I mean, like it's so to say that a black guy's writing this script. I mean, black guys write scripts all the time with white characters in them.
Sure, I just think if the Superman franchise is once a black Superman, that might be a decision they already made. They're not gonna go find Kevin Smith to write. They're gonna find Ta-Nehisi Coates because they want a black man to write the black Superman. He's the guy you go to. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. I mean, we'll be able to tell. I think Michael B. Jordan, if that's a name that is being bandied about, would be fantastic. Obviously, that guy could do anything. But I think we're in the age where a white Superman, it would seem colorblind at this point, or tone deaf, I should say. And it's a weird reaction.
I don't know. I think people were a little bit taken back by the depiction Zack Snyder had with Henry Cavill, with Superman essentially being Jesus Christ.
I mean,
like that's essentially the imagery that he was using, and it's pretty blatant in the film.
Isn't that like classically from the text though? Like God is dead, Superman is dead. Like, haven't they run with that parallel?
Well, no. I mean, like, and also, I don't think that was really the right way to go with that per se. I mean, I think they were trying to establish that this universe, this cinematic universe, was going to be vastly different, and it was going to be very dark compared to Marvel. And I think that's really what they were going for. And when your whole direction is let's go grimdark, well, a lot of bad stuff's going to happen. Grimdark is pretty grim and pretty dark. Like, I mean, I don't know if you've ever read any Warhammer 40k novels or even casually know anything about that universe. It's terrifying. Probably a great grimdark universe for you to look into would be like Alien. I would consider that to be a pretty grimdark universe. I mean, like, if you're going to put Superman in a grimdark universe, that's kind of like the flavor that you're talking about. That's not necessarily the right way to go. I think you can have Ta-Nehisi Coates give Superman, who is classically this all-American boy, an edge, like, from Between the World and Me, where it's, where I think maybe Zack Snyder was trying to go for, and it didn't necessarily hit all the buttons because he was trying to do that with a Jesus allegory, which is he is a man with no home, no country, no nothing. And he's here to save all of us, and like he doesn't even know who the F he is as a person. Like that's what I think Zack Snyder was going for. And I think if Ta-Nehisi Coates had been involved in that kind of project, you would have gotten that as the centerpiece. And then like the Jesus allegory might have been saved for the second movie because people would have been worshiping him at that point. You know what I mean? Maybe people would have looked at him in that manner, and then like maybe you have that kind of struggle later on. But start with that kind of, what the hell am I? Like I thought that it was, truth, justice, and the American way, and the American way is a lie, or like the American dream isn't really there anymore. That's
why a black Superman would be perfect, because a black man born into America is born into a lie. And it's a black Superman would be fantastic, and I just think if Ta-Nehisi Coates, because he's
not a
screenwriter. I just think he's been tapped for a very specific reason. It's because he's this. I mean, he has a lot of cultural influence. He writes for The Atlantic, which is a big liberal publication. And I just think if you're gonna do what a black Superman, that he's the guy you're going to go to for it, and he's going to give you a well thought out, historically nuanced, and he's going to, much like we're trying to do in this podcast, he's going to contextualize the experience for a black America in the last 50, 60, 80, 400 years through the lens of Superman, this outsider who basically fell to this land and then has to figure out how to seek justice and center that. I think Ta-Nehisi Coates would be great. I get what you're saying though, that it seems like a racist thing to expect that out of him. I just think it's probably what he's been called upon to do. I think he's the guy. I mean, if James Baldwin were still alive, he would write Black Superman,
No, you know what I think James Baldwin would do? The exact same thing I think Ta-Nehisi Coates is going to do, and write a white Superman and watch everyone flip out. That's exactly what I think he's going to do. He's going to go, I'm taking your Superman, and I'm doing this stuff with your Superman because you wanted to keep him white. Well, guess what? Now I get to.
Okay, so maybe
I'm not going to have a separate Superman for me, and a separate Superman for you. He's Superman.
All right.
He's everybody's Superman. He's the protector of the damn planet.
He's your white savior, your white vessel. So here he is.
No,
Maybe
no.
that's
I
what
don't
he'll
think
give.
he was a white savior or anything. No, I mean, so the history of Superman. Before we go into our little commercial break here, the history of Superman. I mean, he was created by two Jewish men, that had fled the Nazis. I mean, the reason why he's got those features is because they are historically pretty Jewish features. I mean, the whole idea of him being in this alien vessel and washing ashore on this land is very much like Moses, not Jesus. And he was fighting Nazis. You know, the true justice in the American way was about fighting the Nazis and having a home for the, everybody. Not just singling everybody out and putting them in cages and doing eugenics and all this other stuff. Like, that's what Superman was against in the beginning. And I think that over time, that has fallen away. And I think to go back to kind of that history and go, no, he isn't Jesus, he's Moses. And then you give him the characteristics of Moses. You give him the problems with anger. You give him the problems with faith. You give him the problems with, like, all this other stuff and the growing pains. But he's got all these powers, and he is one of the chosen people of whatever. Like, you could go into that and really dig in, and there's a lot there.
That's fascinating.
To do that with.
That would be...
You could do amazing things with, so, like,
that's very nuanced. That's...
Yeah, so, I mean, like, why go, no, you have to make the Blackula version of Superman. That's...
Right. Well, you
could literally get anybody to write that.
Pete, my Superman is the Red Sun. I have a communist Superman, so
you're just reading it the whole time. Kansas.
Yeah.
Of course he wears a plaid shirt and Chuck Taylors, and he listens to No Shirt Required or whatever, No Jacket Required, whatever that album's called.
Smallville. Yeah, the CW universe.
Phil Collins.
Yo, I love Phil Collins. I just bought 6 Phil Collins albums yesterday. 50% off.
So you got them for $3?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great sale, but great value because you get Phil Collins drums and production value on the other end, which are crisp and timeless.
Hey everybody, welcome to the little commercial break that we have for you in the middle of the episode. Thanks for listening so far. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you want to help out the show, why don't you give us a share on your social media? We're on Facebook and Twitter at G Film History Now.
We also have the email at gfilmhistorynow@gmail.com. So that's a way to get to us. Also, even though it's COVID, I would suggest masking up and then going into a public place and just running up to people and shaking them by the shoulders and screaming Guerilla Film History Now into their faces.
No, don't touch them.
Don't touch them? All right.
People.
We'll get as close as you can without making contact. And just let them
know
that this is a show that you want.
6 feet away. 6 feet away, Mark. It's 6 feet.
Yeah, that is close. Yeah, 6 feet, and then you scream at them.
You have to read the signs, Mark.
Go with a bullhorn so you're heard. It's guerrilla style.
Signs everywhere.
The Electric String Band. I had that in my hand yesterday at the record sale, and then I frisbeed it out the window because that song sucks.
We really, whatever thing you're on that you're listening to us right now, please give us a rating. Let us know what you think. We really appreciate it. And on that note, we'll get back to the show.
6 feet, but yes, tell your friends. Thank you.
All right, class is in session today. Class 1.
We'll have to edit in some fingernails on the chalkboard here so people pay attention.
I think I don't want to. I just want that. I just want you describing it because that's enough for me. I don't want that in anybody's car. Everybody knows what you're talking about. Scream.
It's my favorite sound. Sound you don't hear anymore. It's just squeaky markers on dry erase boards.
Well, if like the metal singer does like a pig squeal.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That always makes me feel alive and like I'm back at school.
That's how you know it's an evil,
or yeah,
an evil band.
or if you're watching Deliverance.
Oh man, you know what? I've actually never watched it because everyone just goes, "Oh, Deliverance," like how I feel when people talk about Audition. The 3 people that have talked about it with me, I go, "Oh."
Oh, I don't even know
So
what
I don't
Audition
wanna-
is, but yeah, no,
Oh.
Deliverance.
Oh,
is a
don't
tough
worry. We'll
film.
get into that in a later episode. We'll go into all of Korean horror, and that'll be me.
Okay.
I'll teach you everything about Korean horror.
Well, and yeah, John Borman is a European director who brought European sensibilities to American 60s cinema. So he is a big figure, and Deliverance was kind of his masterpiece. So we'll be getting to that one, I'm sure, as well at some point.
Oh God. But today, yeah, you were talking about earlier. We had a photography gun.
Yeah, chronophotographic gun.
Chronophotographic gun.
Yeah, chrono for light. Yeah, photo for because you're capturing the image. And
how many frames did you get in a magazine?
12. Yeah, it was.
You got 12 frames in a mag.
Yeah,
Single shot.
And of course you can make modifications, which is actually how this device. It was an improvement on an earlier device, but no, we were quite literally talking about guys in workshops with guns and tools, and they're trying to make so that they can shoot the beautiful world that they have at their disposal, and they want to shoot it through the
and make little gun sounds while they're doing
pew,
it.
pew. It's a
pew,
shame
pew.
that the sound technology was not yet linked up with this part of film history, because I'm sure that's all you would hear. Just with French accents. Pew pew.
Ka-chunk.
Pew pew.
Ka-chunk. Boom. What's that? Oh, I imagine one day we'll have guns with light for ammo.
Well, yeah, and we're still like 100 years before Star Wars here, unfortunately. If you can believe it, kids, that there was a film history before Star Wars. Sorry, that's a little dig at nerds.
Bastard. Dare you. Don't do that to those poor children.
They have
It's fine. No, don't.
All of
no,
Disney
don't.
Plus to
It's
consume.
okay.
They're happy.
Stop crying. It's fine. He didn't mean anything.
I love Star Wars.
Santa Israel.
Yes. No, don't get me started, because I think that's a falsity that it destroys our sense of trust in our institutions, because you are lied to for the first 6 years of life, and then you just have it pulled out from under you, and nothing makes sense from there.
Oh my God, you would be a good history teacher.
I'm very anti Christmas too, but yeah, we'll save that for a holiday episode.
Okay. Okay, so what year was this Phonochrona supercalifragilistic gun made?
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to preface it by saying this. We obviously can't analyze film history without, of course, first looking at the device that makes it possible, which is the movie camera. We can't make films if we don't first yet make film, if you know what I mean. So we take this for granted now, because whatever you are doing right now, I'll speak for myself, but there are lit up screens with moving images all around us all the time. This was not always true. With people watch films in YouTube, Instagram, everything is on a scroll or a click away, and you can see pretty much like anything ever made. You can make that decision to be watching it in under 5 minutes. It's insane. This was not always the way, obviously, and in fact, something as easy as simple as a flip book actually has a history. Like in the 1830s was the first time they think someone actually compiled it. Now, obviously, it's tough to say, but it's important when we go back here to realize that everything you're bringing to the table in your head with the knowledge you have, you got to try to check that at the door, because we're going all the way back, and we're talking about guys named Edward Muybridge. So those types of times. Thomas Edison is a character in this story. And these.
So yeah, but he comes in right at the end and just buys their patent.
I mean, yes. That fascist Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison. Everyone knows that he was a great inventor, but maybe even a keener businessman. And there is actually a court case in the early 1900s, basically, that was taking away credit from him, because everyone was just saying, and people still do, they just credit him with starting film, which is not true. There was, I mean, millennia of works and writings and ideas about the continuity of images and the illusion of movement in a two-dimensional world. We can go back to cave paintings. Let's start there. So researchers believe a cave painting was brought alive by the artist, by holding up a torch lamp in the cave to flicker and for the smoke to haze over the images, and they were supposed to look like they were moving a little bit. And so, yeah,
and then
that's
probably if they found something fun to eat out in the wild.
Yeah, exactly.
Do that.
And you have a nice
and
little
then just be
theater
like, oh,
night.
dude, those deer are like legit running across the wall. That's cool.
Yeah, as
man.
you like eat the deer, and you come back, and you basically the artist would have inscribed on the wall the narrative maybe of this deer. It's running, then it's getting speared, and then getting drugged back home. And like, again, we have incredibly complex histories of literature and drama and film. You have to forget all of that. We're talking about people who don't know about the wheel drawing stuff on the wall because they're trying to understand who they are and why they're on this earth, which is what every filmmaker is trying to do. And so you can say the idea of film technology is going back to those ideas, the idea of playing with light and effects to make a drawing on a cave wall come alive. But we also have something called shadow plays through history. It's puppets and light. And historians can take this back to India, 200 BC. And it probably goes back further than that. Again, you have to it's very hard to find definitive evidence of these things. And then once you do, it's like, well, was this the first one ever made, or does this have a history? And then you have to go searching for that history. So it all gets very convoluted. But the point is, a shadow play is it's a light show, a puppet show with light, to help with the effects. We also have something called a camera obscura, which means dark chamber. And that's a pinhole image camera. And it's a very simple technology where light passes through a hole to invert an image on the other side. Now, there's something called the Magia Neutralis. It's basically a compendium of knowledge from 1558, like an encyclopedia. And there was a passage in there about how to scare your friends using a piece of paper and a torch to project ghostly images in a room that you're not in.
What?
Which is, I mean, there's a couple things there. It's very funny. We hear something like Magia Naturalis, and you think oh, what kind of astute, these are going to be just observations, pedantic musings, that it's not going to be things meant for the people to read and understand. But you have a description on how to scare the shit out of your friends. So, I mean, they're the same people we are now. They just were dealing with the beginnings of the technology, and their souls hadn't yet been stolen by it, to say. And so there's also something called the trotting horse lamp, and the researchers think this goes back to China at least 1000 AD. So about 1,000 years old. And it was a lantern that had a light source in the center, think like a torch maybe, and then a cylinder of paper with silhouettes cut out would have been fixed around the light. And then you could rotate that paper, and the light source from the inside of that paper would project out, and you would get images of the silhouettes on the wall. And so these were often horses and deer come up all the time in this story of movement. And it's because I guess they were everywhere, and people were using horses and eating deer meat for a very long time. And this is what people, I mean, you make art about things you know about, and when sometimes it's about food and the things you ride around for transportation. So it's interesting.
No, but like it was literally a reflection of their environment.
Right, and
I think what you're trying to get to.
Yes.
It's like, look, like this is what they had, and the first thing they tried to do was like, hey, we figured out how to make a picture. How do we make it try to come to life and show it to us again? Like it's basically like what people have been trying to do since then.
It's a form of fooling ourselves that we can capture time and hold on to a moment and then see it later. And you can't, but you can remember it, and that's what art helps us do. It makes you remember how you feel when you interacted with that piece. And those feelings can be universal. And so, I mean, we're not going to go say the cavemen were the first auteurs or filmmakers, but it's without them, you don't get them informing the people who then went on to make the innovation for a shadow play. And, you know, all these things they're discovered by humans based on knowledge that was learned from elders. It's very basic, but you need to understand how this stuff stacks, because cavemen aren't just going to write Transformers on their wall. They have no reason to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but they probably came pretty close.
Well, some of those images are pretty strange, and they have this uncanny quality. But again, we don't understand in the exact context they were trying to make this art, and like to us they look like childlike, but these were probably some of the most profound people of their day making these observations. So yeah, I don't want to get too pedantic with it, but it is important to just remember how you stack this knowledge in your mind, because we are also jaded sitting here in 2021 with our technology, and it is very hard to go back and think like, wow, like someone had to go and invent a puppet show and a pinhole camera just to. So these pinhole cameras were often used for to help sketching and painters, because you could basically have an image from outside reflected on like your desktop, and then you could trace it. Now you would have to have a.
Oh no, that's actually, believe it or not, some of my mom, like early '90s, late '80s, early '90s, was doing stuff like that, where she had like a little projector. And it had like a little like picture, like a portrait of somebody from like just like a hair salon book or something that she liked, and she would trace it and then paint it, and it would be like some like that style of like pop art from like the 80s and 90s.
Oh yeah, I love that
early
stuff
90s
too.
of like that real kind of like flat, almost like pop art, comic book art look.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking
about?
No,
I do. Yeah, absolutely.
Very pastel-y, very bright, vivid color. Yeah, she painted like that all the time. So like they were doing that back then.
Oh, absolutely, and that is the very thing
nuts.
we're trying to remember here, is that there's the things you experience in your life, they experienced too. It was just with different information. But the feelings they're playing out on the walls of caves, and when they're trying to do these shadow plays, they're playing around with these ideas that they observe. They're studying. They're trying to demystify, understand, and then you can get these things to a point when you can harness and manipulate them for goals and needs, and that is what technology is. And film is just this wonderful medium, because it brings together sound, music, movement. I mean, it brings together all in literature, of course, all these disparate parts of art, and then it plays an illusion on your eyes that you're looking at motion and not pictures. And so the whole thing is a magic trick. And it's really interesting, because when you read about these early people who were thinking about, in science they call it locomotion, how things move, and that this is a field of study. And we have inventors, magicians, alchemists, soldiers, physicists, astronomers, industrialists, but also craftsmen, instrument makers, tinkers, and bird watchers. And in the story of film, this was all hands on deck were contributing to these ideas. And again, to go back to it wasn't Edison. Edison is an endpoint. He's a guy who can look at scientists who are doing work he likes, and then he can basically give them money to continue that work under his aegis in his corporation. And then he gets to kind of take credit. But like it's also important, like he was employing craftsmen and people who were actually doing these things, and some of those people were the ones who were making the on-the-ground innovations. And then guys like, Thomas Edison gets credit.
And then this is where we're starting to get into like photographs and pictures.
Yes,
and things like
1839
that.
is when they say basically photography started. And so, yes, actually, I messed up the order here because that's the line I was looking for.
That's okay. We'll just keep rolling.
Okay, yeah. So photography, the date they circle, the historians circle for the start of photography, it's about 1839. Again, inherent to that technology, we're talking movie cameras here, it has its own separate history, but a lot of it is playing with the same ideas here from history, that images move and we want to capture them in a moment, and then if you can, string them together so you can remember it in like it happened in movement, in as close to the three dimensions we live in as possible. And so from photography starting in 1839, it kind of starts this arms race of people because they immediately saw the potential. And it's also important to remember the phonograph was being worked on and popularized in the mid 1800s era, because when the phonograph came out, people wanted to do for pictures what the phonograph did for sound. They wanted to be able to broadcast it.
Yeah, because I mean, I think what a lot of people misunderstand about like the Industrial Revolution and stuff like that, like at that time, like the way that they got excited about the camera and the phonograph and all that stuff, and it's like a lot of these things that we kind of take as novelty now, they looked at that the same way we look at, like, oh my god, that's a 96-inch OLED display, 16K whatever the hell
right
display, like it's literally, it's the exact same kind of thing. Or it's like, oh my god, this is the first smartphone ever made. Like, I mean, like, it was that kind of wonder, it was that kind of like thing when you're talking about these kinds of inventions. So there absolutely was that push there, and it was really driven by like this kind of like, it was this transition from the American idea of we have to preserve everything, we have to like sew our own clothes, and we have to do this and we have to do that, and it was the transition from that into, no, we are consumers. My shirt is ripped, I just buy a new shirt.
Yeah, and
my car is broken, I go to a mechanic, and I pay them to fix it for me because I don't want to fix it anymore.
It's disposability. And
like that was it was literally like the beginning of that period. So like a lot of those people that were like this ultra rich old money and stuff like that were kind of funding Edison, right? Because well, Edison had the Wonder Emporium essentially. Of things.
Well, and because his main rival obviously was Tesla, and Tesla was
well, I mean, Tesla was initially his protege,
right? And they say he basically screwed him out of money. He tasked Tesla to fix all of his DC operators in, I think it was the New York area. And when Tesla did it, because he was a genius, he came back and he was like, "Yo, Holmes, where's my 50 grand?" Edison laughed at him and told him he was joking. So apparently Tesla, that was the last time they were acquaintances, because he got screwed out of money. And so he went on a quest to beat him, and he needed Westinghouse, the industrialist, to fund him, because Tesla was awful with money. He was born broke and he died broke. But in between, there's a lot of brilliant people. The brilliance is on the side of the industrialists, because they are recruiting people into their think tanks, basically, right? Into their incubators. And so they're dealing in prospects, and that's what Tesla was. But then he struck out on his own. He found a new like sports owner, right? And now he was funded by Westinghouse. And that's how you get the electricity wars. And it's kind of no different. But like here.
So for the electricity wars, did that have anything to do in terms of like how cameras developed over time? Did like Tesla do stuff with photography, or is that kind of like stagnate during that period because we're starting to have this battle between DC and AC?
Well, yeah, and they're basically, because the technologies were basically functioning. It was just Edison had the edge. Well, Tesla had the edge at first because he was winning out. It was appearing that his would have been easier to get out to the masses, but Edison put a smear campaign out about the alternating current being very dangerous.
Yeah. And
so they become wars. We see the same thing in film, because once you get photography, boom, you get an arms race. It's like once the technology has the point where like, okay, we can see how this works and get it to as many people as possible. Now everyone has to come on board, and that's how you get inventors and magicians and alchemists and physicists and astronomers and industrialists and craftsmen and instrument makers and tinkers.
Yeah, because now you're starting to get like people that are like basically like psychics and stuff. When you're talking about that, you're talking about like those people like, oh yeah, no, we have pictures of fairies.
Oh, well, actually those
like
people,
this picture, like this is a magic camera.
So yeah, what you're talking about is there were charlatans, of course, like anything. As soon as there's a technology, people, where's the cut up on it? How can I fool people? How can I scare my friends? You know? And people, yeah, we're touring the country saying, I'll take a picture. If you all think real hard about your dead relative, he'll show up in the picture. You won't be able to see it for a couple weeks until I send you, the photo, because they got to
it has to develop a particular way.
Right.
It's special film, and it needs this special golden whatever amulet in the water.
But what is that? That's the ability of someone who knows how to work this technology to obscure what's actually going on and make it seem like only they can handle it. So let me take care of this, and then I'll give it to you, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And so, yeah, there were people doing these scams where they would, take 2-3 weeks and basically, Photoshop in of the day, right? They would do whatever chemical treatments, and you get this ghostly apparition in the back, and then you get it to these people, and they think it's Uncle Harold, and they're amazed. But really what it was, they're amazed at the wrong thing. What they should be amazed at is that they're holding a sheet of like chemically treated paper that has captured a moment of time from the light that emitted into an aperture. That is amazing. It's not the fake ghost behind it, but that's what started to happen. And that actually took, I believe it was Harry Houdini who started touring, because he was so disappointed that people he didn't like people doing these fake seances and photograph tricks. So he would end up tracking them down and dispute them and poke holes in them. And so you get a reaction to the reaction of that with these kinds of technologies. And so that's how it's like the craziest scattershot of people.
Oh.
It's
actually, fun fact about that, just real quick before we go into like the other stuff. I have a fun fact about the Houdini thing.
What's that?
So Joseph Conrad, who wrote Heart of Darkness.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. So he was like super into psychics and all that stuff and everything. When Houdini was doing that, and like he like basically exposed it for Joseph Conrad to see and everything, Joseph Conrad stopped talking to Harry Houdini.
Really?
And that was like one of his best friends.
Oh,
and he's
no.
like, no, you're a...
He
and totally walked away from Houdini and like, no, dude, no. You're not a believer, bro. And like, no, that's crazy. No, you're hurting these people.
Wow, so he thought he was like...
Yeah, he was like that, and like, yeah, but like that's how powerful this was for them.
So he
that's
was
how powerful this illusion of film was.
He was a ghost photograph truther.
Mm-hmm.
And wow.
No, the fairy did win the election.
Yeah. Jeez.
It was the fairy lord. He was from the Fey realm. His name was Xanathar. He granted me 3 wishes, and he gave me this little tiny wand.
And Houdini was like, no, none of that happened. You're silly.
But I have a picture of the wand that he gave me, but he can't give it to me because it's too tiny.
Yeah.
Harry! I wrote Heart of Darkness, Harry!
Which, I mean, to me,
You're a wizard, Harry!
I'm only glad for Heart of Darkness because it gave us Apocalypse Now.
And also a lot of racist depictions of Africa.
Yeah, fuck.
Bastard.
Colonialist.
But to be fair, like, well, I mean, like, there was a lot of movement from Heart of Darkness for, like, after that, like, to actually, like, dismantle a lot of that stuff because they saw how, like, crazy evil it was.
Right.
But I
and
mean, like,
art, again...
some of the depictions he did in that were pretty hard.
Yeah, it is hard. I mean, you get the guy who wrote The Jungle, Upton Sinclair. He said, "I aim for the people's hearts."
Yeah, I mean, like,
it was
I mean, like, that's what books were doing.
Yeah,
at that time.
Right, and so there is a part of film history that gets to that. But to steer us back here to our Chronophotographic Gun, and basically I'm going to talk about 2 events that define our film history in the context I'm trying to present it. Like I said, there were people thinking about these things in all sorts of fields forever, but we're going to go to a guy named Edward Muybridge in 1778. Edward Muybridge. He looks exactly like you would think if you pull him up. No hair, long white beard, and he looks insane. He ended up well, actually, I won't tell you. Okay, I'm going to start. So, yeah, Edward Muybridge. Many people may be familiar with the story of Sally Gardner, who you might not know it by that name, but we're talking about the horse who was photographed over a bet on whether horses during their trot have all four legs off the ground at any point, which they do. However, in this 18...
Spoiler alert!
Right, yeah, sorry.
Save it for the end of the thing!
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the horse in motion.
No, I'm leaving that in. Go to hell. That's going to teach you a lesson.
Everyone's
going to go, dude. No, I don't even want to listen anymore.
Yeah, how does the horse...
Oh, yeah. End? Mandalorian? Yeah, I'll tell you what happens with the damn helmet.
Okay, so we'll say... There's a famous, again, here we are with an industrialist, Leland Stanford. He's the guy who started Stanford University. He also was a big horse guy, and he had all sorts of his hands in industry and science and everything. He's one of these robber baron guys, like Westinghouse and Morgan and all those guys. But he...
Build me a railroad.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it's not even build me a railroad. It's like, get me the government to subsidize this railroad, and then you build it, and then I'll make the money off it twice.
Get the government to build me a railroad, and I'll bring your mother back from the dead with my magic camera.
And it's hard to say no to propositions like that.
Well, I mean, you struck a hard bargain there, sir. It was, how did you lose your eye? I fell down a flight of stairs when I was very young.
There's actually troubling the one eye. Edison and Tesla actually in specific was convinced that you could project images from inside the human head. If you've seen the Will Smith Wild Wild West, great movie.
Of course, yeah, classic movie. It's right up there with fucking Lost in Space.
Do you know that he said no to The Matrix to make that movie, Will Smith?
I know, and I think that
life,
that to be fair though, that he was all the 100% the wrong choice for that.
Yeah, it turned out fine, but in retrospect, he's looking at
imagine him on the other side of the building when Morpheus jumps, and him going, "Oh, hell no, I ain't doing that. I ain't jumping." Because that's literally how he would have said it.
Yeah, it would have been a different film.
He wouldn't have went, "Whoa, let me try it." Oh, hell no, I'm not doing it. No, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, he must regret at least, I mean...
You ain't, no. I said no! And he'd, really yell across the way, "No!" It was Independence Day.
Yeah,
it would have been terrible. It would have made it as bad as Wild Wild West.
Maybe, but I like Wild Wild West for many reasons, and it's because the steampunk element which people have valued from that film. And you have the weird inventions, and yeah, Kevin Kline's character actually has a little device where he pops might be a glass eyeball.
I think that was Kevin Kline's last movie.
Yeah, what happened to him?
I think he just quit after that.
Wow, because.
Wow, well, that was a hell of an end to my career. I guess I'm just going to go away, and people are going to argue if I'm dead or not for the next 20 years.
Well, there's always The Big Chill, so he lives in my heart in The Big Chill soundtrack.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I don't think he lives in me at all. I you know what happens when I like you started talking about Wild Wild West, I immediately thought of Will Smith and Salma Hayek, and I was like, what? The whole time you're talking, I'm like, well, who's the other guy?
Yeah, it's Kevin Kline.
Oh, it's Kevin Kline. Wow, I'm an asshole for not remembering that man.
No, I would think that makes you...
But he's, literally a darling of cinema. And, every time I'm like, oh, God, I feel like such a dick.
Yeah, it's a different era kind of a darling. Whose darling was Kevin Kline? It's like you forgot
your mom's birthday when you forget who Kevin Kline is.
No, it's like you forgot your mom's favorite actor's birthday.
No, it's not. It's not, because that is not important at all. No, I argue Kevin that's Kline. Not important at all.
Kevin Kline's not important.
Oh, no, it's Leo's birthday. We're supposed to sleep in the deer. Like he did with The Revenant.
Right, which is why on May the 4th...
How are you going to get an Oscar, Leo? That's who I named you after. Now get in the deer.
You got to sleep in the tauntaun. This has been proven. That's how you get award season glory.
It's not a tauntaun, Larry. It's a deer. Stop trying to put Hamill on him. His name is Leo. Don't you dare let him call you Mark. I can't believe I let him have the middle name Mark.
I have my own objections to my name. But I am glad you mentioned Leo because the Renaissance guys, Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo.
Oh no!
Those...
We can't backtrack again. We're already way over.
I was
just
going to say all those guys had sketches on human locomotion and early film. Not quite film devices, but they were thinking about these things too. And so just to say, yes, this is well-grounded territory by the time we get to the photograph, and then by time Edward Muybridge is trying to figure out this horse riddle.
Which we figured out. Yeah, they do. And
But
who betted which way?
So
who betted which way?
Leland,
it was Stanford
that
said yes, they do.
Yeah, he thought that all four legs would inevitably be off the ground at some point. Now, at the time, people who were drawers, painters, if you would draw a horse in gait, in gallop, you would draw with 2 feet on the ground and 2 off. And you could probably picture the image. Image would look really weird if you painted it with all 4 off. It would look really weird. Because you would be portraying flight, essentially. You would need the movement from a 0 seconds to second 1 to understand it's moving. If it's just a picture, it looks like a flying horse. And if people couldn't, I guess, reckon with that idea. And so Leland Stanford, convinced of this, and him and his rich buddies, I guess, would fight about this. And again, there's not really a whole lot on the line here, whether he's right, but... Yeah, Leland Stanford commissioned a guy named Edward Muybridge to figure this out. And what Muybridge had been working on was early film technology. And what he and his device, well, it was actually 12 devices. He lined a spot on the track with these 12 devices and set up tripwires so that when the horse would run across these tripwires, and I guess be unaffected by it, but it would be enough to pull the line on the camera, and it would take a picture. And so you would have a procession of 12 of these that happen over about a second or two. And when you put them together, you have the illusion of motion, which is like film. And so this is how he did it. It was 12 photos put together, but they had to be tripped. And this is from like basically a fixed perspective. So there's still lots to innovate there, but this is the first time we have images of a basically a moving image that was taken as the image was moving. So we're not talking drawings here or pictures or photos or poses. We're talking about something that was captured as it was moving, just as it was moving. And so a couple weeks after this experiment, they made these into like basically producible pieces of art, and they were sent out. They first had to be touched up by basically an animator, someone who came in to make these images look more like, I guess, horse-like. They look like shadows more like, because we have very low fidelity. This is like the first film, so you could picture that. Because the exposure had to be so fast. Yeah, and there wasn't like this like now we're dealing with like crazy like computer chips and stuff that capture the image and the light very, very quickly. But back then, like you're dealing with like physical analog mediums that like you have to make that snap go chick chick so fast that like it's going to be literally black. It's going to be the silhouette of the horse at best, and that was a very, very, very sensitive camera. Yeah, because we're talking about like, I mean, this is why I mentioned, and it had to be probably an extremely bright day. Absolutely, like you have to imagine that it had to be like high noon or something, because like you needed so much light to expose that thing so quickly to burn that image so fast. That's why these ideas, that's why I mentioned alchemists, because you can go back to encyclopedias in like 12th century Middle East, and they have ideas about these chemicals that ended up being used for film. So this is a continuum. Yeah. I just want to always stress that. But yeah, they're dealing with chemicals on like you said, analog pieces of thing that now need to be manipulated and put together to look like an image. And so that was basically day one of film when that happened. But before before that, we have what I find to be the more interesting story, which is Etienne Jules Marie and his chronophotographic gun. And you'll have to pull this gun up, listener, to see it, because it's a very strange device. It's literally a shotgun that he took apart and modified and made it into a camera. He improved the technology that he had used in his field. He was kind of like a bird watcher, a physiologist who was trying to understand how objects move. And he studied human locomotion, horse locomotion, bird locomotion. Those were his like three big ones. And he was trying to figure out how to take images of people as they move so that you can look like what one step looks like compared to another and all this. And he modified this gun. It was a photographic revolver that had been used to capture these images for looking at birds and horses. And he made it into a shotgun. And he was able to make modifications with some better chemicals, and the images were coming out clear. So he would go out with this gun, and townspeople in his town thought he was crazy, because he would go down to the water and he would point this gun at these birds in the sky for hours. But no one ever heard a trigger get pulled. No one ever saw a bird fall out of the sky. So they thought this guy was either an awful but dedicated hunter, or he was just a crazy person. But such is the life with some of these people, because this guy did not care about any of that. He wanted to see what birds look like when they flew. That's all he cared about. And so he invented this device. And it's with this device that we get the chronophotography was a huge influence on modern art, because if you think of Cubism and abstract art, where they're trying to, like Picasso, it's supposed to be a woman sitting on a couch, but it's all cubed up and stuff. And that they were looking at these images of early Etienne Jules Marie chronophotography, and that's how they were conceiving it. Marcel Duchamp, who's a famous abstractist, he has a famous painting called A Woman Descends the Staircase. And if you look at it, it doesn't look like much. But if you have seen one of these 12 pictures of one person moving down the same space, you would understand what he was going for, because he basically on one frame put 12 different women going down a staircase, because that's the movement here. And so again, we have to go back and think about, we can't take these things for granted. These were new, exciting ideas at the time. And because of this chronophotographic gun, Etienne Jules Marie, in his field of like locomotion, he changed everything. They were able to study what a horse looked like, or a deer or a bird in flight, with all of its movements. And now you can think of how you can see a video game get developed in a bird's flight, and you see it in like, the real fundamentals. Like, that's what he was doing. And so he informs all that type of work. But of course, he couldn't think of any of that. My man just wanted to get birds on paper. That's what he wanted to do. But that's what this technology allowed. And it's this idea of the gun from one perspective, putting 12 images on one. It was a metal plate with like chemical reactions.
Oh my God! I guessed 12 at the beginning.
Well,
I was right.
That's the number. A couple of numbers keep coming up. It's like 12, 16, and then 12 twice is 24. And so you can see. I mean, these guys had their reasons for the 12, because some of the bigger animals at first, I think he had only 8 slides, but they're too fast. So you wouldn't catch what you were wanting. You needed longer. You needed more frames. And some animals were too slow to even change from one of the picture spots from another. So it was like horses were the sweet spot, and so were birds. And he used this. And this is like the moment. So, because a couple years later is when Edward Muybridge set up the 12 tripwires to get all of that as one continuous image. This is like on the flip side of that line of delineation, where Etienne Jules Marie is actually getting 12 images and putting them on one. And that's the illusion of movement. It's not true to film, but it's the predecessor of what those 12 tripwires were. And that number is absolutely on purpose, because that has to deal with the shutter speeds and the speed of the movement of the object and everything. And so, these were scientific innovations who were done by people who weren't necessarily in science. A lot of them were, but a chronophotographic gun represents.
But I mean, a film degree at the end of the day is a science degree. Like that's something that I don't think a lot of people understand. Like, I think a lot of people look at it as an art degree, but there is so much tech involved that it very much is I mean, like when you're just going into a lighting class and what the physics of light and the color of light and all that other stuff, like you literally need to know that stuff to accurately depict, like, okay, why the white balance has to be like 4700K as opposed to 5300K. Like, you need to know when to apply those. And so
yeah, all the theory of the technology, and that's why it's movie magic, because if you have technology that people don't understand, if it's a mystified technology, it appears to be magic. And that's what so that's what a lot of these people, when you were talking about like the charlatans, that's what they were able to do. So I mean, going to film school to learn how to make Transformers look like they're flying or whatever, that's insane. Like, that is an incredible feat we take for granted. But so much history.
But really, it's only been like what? It hasn't even been 200 years.
No, I mean, we're talking about 150 from photography, and I mean, the start of plots showing up in films started around 1900. So it is
which is where we're going to be starting next time.
Yes, when we're actually talking about filmmakers making films. What I wanted to talk about today was scientists making the things on which film can be filmed on. Like, so it's important to understand the device, because we're not talking something in a desert got picked up and they're like, oh shit, we can make movies now. Like, no, humans had to wrestle with these ideas for thousands of years. It passed down their knowledge.
So, like, by the time we get to like feature films and everything for next time, are we on cameras that are 16 or 24?
Between the two, 16 and 24. But what the fun part is, and I can leave people with this, these films were in color. And people don't ever think about
what?
Yeah, these films were presented in color. When we're talking, the early 1900s, when we get to Georges Méliès and the Lumière brothers, their films were in color because they were painting over. It was an arduous post-production.
They were oh my God, I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, and it's not even, we always think of these things in black and white, but that's not how people would have been seeing them in theaters. In fact, they would have had a narrator sometimes, and even a small orchestra would have been playing music. So you would have had voices coming from the screen and music in color. And so, actually, the early stages of that cinema is a lot more like what we imagine going to the movies like now. It's just hard to imagine because they didn't have the technology to do it. They had to do it themselves. So you had to have someone come in to speak the lines that you wanted to come off the screen, and you had to have music come in to play along with the film. And so these are innovations unto themselves, which are exciting. And this is the type of thing we get into here on Guerilla Film History Now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we want to demystify all these things. There is any object you can take from a film set. There's a story and there's a first, why that shows up and why it's still used today and who did it first and who innovated it. So,
and I feel like we did a very, very big overview from like literally from cavemen to the beginning of plots and film. So like, I mean, like if there's something that you heard where it's like, wait a second, why did you just gloss over that? That's something that if you want to like email us, like we talked about earlier, send us an email, and that's something we can take a super deep dive into. Because like, you know,
which I would love to do.
The great thing about like this whole thing is that we can take this big overview and then go in with this like kaleidoscopic microscope and just chink, and
you hone
in
and then pull out. You look at what you want to look at, right? Say chronophotographic machine, and then you look up and see like who the guy holding it is, ATN Jules Marie, and then you pull out and you understand what culture he was living in. What was he trying to do? And who was he trying to get this for? And that's how you look at history. You can't just look at it as a series of names and dates and things that almost seem found. They are not. These are made by humans. We're awesome. We're awful, but we are awesome. And I want to celebrate that with this podcast.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We really appreciate it. Once again, I'm Pete.
And I'm Mark.
And thanks again. We'll talk to you next time. See ya. Peace.
Peace.